As you take your first breath this morning, a startling realization settles in. Nothing will ever be the same. The air feels different, heavier, as if the world itself is holding its breath, waiting for you to notice what has changed. You sit up, the sheets cool against your skin, and for a moment the silence in your room is so complete it's almost deafening. There is no hum of distant traffic, no birdsong, not even the faint ticking of a clock. It's as if the universe has pressed pause, and you are the only one left to witness the aftermath. You swing your legs over the edge of the bed, feet meeting the floor with a muted thud. The world outside your window is shrouded in a pale, colorless light, as if someone has drained the vibrancy from existence itself. You notice the absence of clutter, no scattered books, no half-finished cups of coffee, no reminders of yesterday's chaos. Everything is stripped bare, reduced to its most essential form. The emptiness is not just around you, it's inside you too, echoing in the hollow spaces of your mind where thoughts used to race and collide. Imagine waking up one day and realizing that everything you once believed to be important, every possession, every ambition, every carefully constructed identity, has dissolved into nothingness. Picture yourself opening your eyes to a world where the noise of constant striving has faded, leaving only the raw, unadorned silence of being. You find yourself standing at the edge of a new reality, the truth dawning on you all at once. Emptiness is not a void to be feared, but a presence to be reckoned with. But what is this emptiness, really? Is it the absence of meaning, or the space where meaning is born? Is it a curse, a sign that something vital has been lost, or is it a hidden blessing, an invitation to see the world and yourself anew? You feel the paradox pressing in on you, sharp and cold. How can nothingness feel so heavy? How can the lack of something be more overwhelming than its presence? You walk through your home, each step echoing in the stillness. The walls seem to recede, the rooms stretching out into infinity. There is no distraction, no comfort in the familiar. You are left alone with your thoughts, and for the first time, you realize how much of your life has been spent running from this very moment, filling every silence, crowding every empty space with noise, with things, with endless activity. Now, stripped of all that, you are forced to confront the emptiness head-on. A sense of unease creeps in. You remember the stories you've been told since childhood, that emptiness is dangerous, a sign of failure or loss. You recall the warnings. Don't let your mind wander. Don't leave your schedule open. Don't allow yourself to be bored. Fill your days, fill your mind, fill your heart. But now, in this moment, you see the lie hidden beneath those words. The emptiness is not your enemy. It is a mirror, reflecting back everything you have tried to avoid. Suddenly, you're faced with a moment that makes you question everything you thought you knew. If emptiness is so terrifying, why does it feel so familiar? Why does it call to you, even as you try to turn away? You remember the times you have stared into the void, late at night when sleep wouldn't come, in the quiet moments between conversations, in the aftermath of loss, when the world seemed to stop spinning. Each time you felt the same pull, the same sense that something important was hidden in the silence. You begin to wonder, what if emptiness is not a lack but a possibility? What if it is the canvas on which your life is painted? The space that allows for creation, for transformation? What if instead of running from it, you could learn to embrace it, to see it not as a threat but as a gift? The questions multiply, each one more unsettling than the last. If you are not defined by what you possess, by what you do, by the roles you play, then who are you? If all the noise and clutter were stripped away, what would remain? Is there a self beneath the layers, or is the self itself an illusion? A story told to fill the emptiness. You feel the weight of these questions pressing down on you, heavy and relentless. The urge to escape, to fill the silence with anything, music, conversation, even your own anxious thoughts, is almost overwhelming. But something holds you back. A quiet voice, barely more than a whisper, urges you to stay, to listen, to see what lies beyond the fear. You close your eyes, letting the emptiness wash over you. At first it feels like drowning, a suffocating sense of loss, of being unmoored from everything that once gave your life meaning. But as you surrender to it, something shifts. The emptiness is not a void, but a space, a vast open field stretching out in all directions. It is not cold or hostile, but alive with possibility. In the silence, you begin to hear the faintest echoes of something deeper, a truth that has been waiting for you all along. You remember the words of ancient philosophers, the mystics and sages who spoke of emptiness not as a curse, but as the ground of all being. You recall the teachings of Zen, the paradoxical wisdom that only by letting go can you truly possess, that only by emptying yourself can you be filled. You think of the artists and poets who have found beauty in the spaces between things, in the pauses, in the silences that give shape to music and meaning to words. But still, the tension remains. You are caught between two worlds, the world of form, of substance, of certainty, and the world of emptiness, of formlessness, of infinite possibility. You feel the pull of both, the desire to return to the safety of the known, and the longing to explore the unknown. The paradox is almost unbearable. To find yourself, you must lose yourself. To be whole, you must be empty. You open your eyes, and the world seems different. The emptiness is still there, but it no longer feels threatening. It is a presence, not an absence, a silent companion, waiting for you to acknowledge it. You realize that you have been living your life as if emptiness were something to be avoided at all costs, when in fact, it is the very thing that makes life possible. Without emptiness, there can be no growth, no change, no creation. Without emptiness, you would be trapped in a prison of your own making, suffocated by the weight of your own expectations. You begin to see the beauty in the emptiness, the way it allows light to filter through, the way it gives shape to everything around it. You notice the spaces between the leaves on the trees, the gaps between the notes in a song, the pauses in a conversation that allow for understanding. You realize that emptiness is not a flaw but a feature, a necessary part of the fabric of reality. But even as you start to accept this new perspective, the questions linger. If emptiness is so essential, why do we fear it so much? Why do we spend our lives trying to fill every gap, to avoid every silence, to escape every moment of stillness? What is it about emptiness that threatens us so deeply, that makes us feel so vulnerable, so exposed? You sense that the answer lies deeper, hidden beneath layers of habit and conditioning. You recall the times you have felt most alive, not when your life was full to bursting, but when you were stripped bare, when everything unnecessary had fallen away. In those moments, you felt a clarity, a sense of presence that was both exhilarating and terrifying. You were no longer defined by your possessions, your achievements, your relationships. You were simply there, alive in the emptiness, open to whatever might come. And yet, the fear persists. The fear that if you let go, if you allow yourself to be empty, you will disappear. That without the constant noise and activity, you will cease to exist. That emptiness is not a space of possibility, but a void of annihilation. You stand at the threshold, caught between the old world and the new. The old world promises safety, certainty, the comfort of the familiar. The new world offers freedom, possibility, the chance to become something more. But to enter it, you must first pass through the emptiness, must learn to see it not as an enemy, but as an ally. You take a deep breath, feeling the air fill your lungs, and for a moment you are suspended between two realities. The emptiness is both terrifying and beautiful, a paradox that defies easy answers. You sense that the journey ahead will not be easy, that it will require you to question everything you have ever believed, to let go of everything you have ever clung to. But you also sense that it is a journey worth taking, that on the other side of emptiness lies a truth more profound than anything you have ever known. As the morning light grows stronger, you feel a strange sense of anticipation. The emptiness is no longer something to be feared, but something to be explored. You are no longer running from it, but moving toward it, drawn by the promise of discovery, of transformation, of awakening. And so you stand at the edge of a new reality, the truth dawning on you all at once. The beauty of emptiness is not in what it lacks, but in what it makes possible. It is the space in which you can become who you truly are, the silence in which you can finally hear your own voice. But the questions remain, unresolved and urgent. What is the true nature of this emptiness? Why does it haunt us, shape us, define us? What hidden forces drive our fear of the void? And what might we discover if we dared to look deeper? The answers lie just beyond the horizon, waiting to be uncovered. The journey has only just begun. You step into the emptiness, and it steps into you. The silence is no longer just a backdrop. It is a living presence, pressing against your skin, seeping into your bones. You sense that beneath the surface of this quiet, something ancient and restless stirs, a hidden problem, a force that has shaped your every thought and feeling, long before you ever noticed its existence. Why do you recoil from emptiness, even as you sense its beauty? Why does the open space, the unfilled moment, the blank canvas, so often fill you with dread rather than wonder? The answer is not simple. It is woven into the fabric of your mind, your culture, your very sense of self. To understand it, you must journey deeper, peeling back the layers of habit and history that have taught you to fear the void. You remember the first time you felt the ache of emptiness, a childhood afternoon when your friends had gone home and the house was too quiet, or a night when the stars seemed impossibly far away, and you felt small, insignificant, lost. In those moments you reached for something, anything to fill the space. A toy, a story, a distraction. You learned, without ever being told, that emptiness was a problem to be solved, a wound to be bandaged, a threat to be neutralized. But where did this lesson come from? Was it born in you, or was it given to you by the world around you? You begin to see how deeply the fear of emptiness is rooted in the human psyche, how it has been passed down through generations, encoded in language, ritual, and myth. Carl Jung once wrote that man cannot stand a meaningless life. You feel the truth of this in your own heart, the way you reach for meaning, for purpose, for something to anchor you in the storm of existence. Jung saw the emptiness at the core of the human soul not as a flaw, but as a fundamental condition, a space that cries out to be filled with symbols, stories, gods. When the old myths die, he warned, the emptiness returns, and with it, a terrible anxiety. You think of Friedrich Nietzsche, who declared that God is dead, and with those words, tore a hole in the fabric of Western civilization. Nietzsche saw the emptiness that followed, the abyss, and understood its danger. Without the old certainties, without the comforting illusions, humanity was left staring into the void, forced to create meaning for itself or be consumed by nihilism. The emptiness, for Nietzsche, was both a threat and an opportunity, a test of your courage, your creativity, your will to power. Arthur Schopenhauer, too, felt the weight of emptiness. He saw life as a ceaseless striving, a restless hunger that could never be satisfied. For Schopenhauer, emptiness was the inevitable result of desire. As soon as you attain what you want, the thrill fades and you are left with the same old ache, the same old void. The only escape, he believed, was to renounce desire altogether, to find peace in the acceptance of emptiness, rather than in the endless pursuit of fulfillment. You realize that these thinkers, though separated by time and temperament, all grappled with the same hidden problem: the terror and allure of emptiness, the way it shapes your search for meaning, your fear of loss, your longing for wholeness. Their words echo in your mind, mingling with your own questions, your own memories. But the roots of the problem go deeper still. You sense that the fear of emptiness is not just a philosophical dilemma, but a psychological wound, a scar left by the experience of separation, of being cast out from the warmth of connection into the cold of isolation. You remember the infant's cry when the mother leaves the room, the panic of abandonment, the desperate need to be held, to be seen, to be filled. The emptiness you fear is not just the absence of things, but the absence of love, of belonging, of self. Jean-Paul Sartre called this the nothingness at the heart of consciousness, the sense that you are never quite complete, never quite at home in the world. You are condemned, he said, to be free, to invent yourself anew in every moment, to face the emptiness of existence without guarantees or absolutes. For Sartre, the emptiness is both a burden and a gift. It is what makes you anxious, but also what makes you human. You begin to see how this hidden force shapes your behavior, your emotions, your very identity. You fill your days with activity, your mind with thoughts, your heart with longing, not because you are truly hungry, but because you are afraid of what might happen if you stopped, if you let the emptiness in. You build your self-image out of achievements, possessions, relationships, hoping that if you pile up enough something, the nothing will go away. But it never does. No matter how much you acquire, how much you accomplish, the emptiness returns, quiet, patient, unyielding. It waits for you in the pauses, in the silences, in the moments when you are alone with yourself. It is the shadow that follows you, the question that will not be silenced. Who are you when there is nothing left to hold on to? Aldous Huxley once observed that most human beings have an almost infinite capacity for taking things for granted. You realize how much of your life has been lived on autopilot, moving from one distraction to the next, never pausing to ask why you are running or what you are running from. The emptiness is not just outside you, it is inside you, woven into the very structure of your consciousness. You think of Viktor Frankl, who survived the horrors of the concentration camps and emerged with a radical insight that even in the midst of unimaginable suffering, you can find meaning, not by filling the emptiness, but by facing it, by choosing your response to it. Frankl saw that the search for meaning is not a luxury, but a necessity, a way of transforming emptiness from a source of despair into a source of strength. But how do you do this? How do you face the emptiness without being consumed by it? How do you find meaning in a world that so often seems indifferent, chaotic, empty? The answers are not easy, and the path is not clear. You sense that the problem is not just personal, but collective, a wound shared by all of humanity, a legacy of a culture that worships fullness, busyness, accumulation. You see it in the way society teaches you to fear the pause, the gap, the silence. From an early age, you are taught to fill every moment with activity, every space with stuff, every thought with noise. You are rewarded for productivity, for achievement, for never stopping, never resting, never allowing yourself to be empty. The message is clear. Emptiness is failure. Emptiness is weakness. Emptiness is death. But is it? Or is this just another illusion? Another story told to keep you running, to keep you from seeing the truth? You begin to suspect that the real problem is not emptiness itself, but your relationship to it, the way you have been taught to fear it, to fight it, to deny it at all costs. You feel the tension building, the sense that something vital is at stake. The emptiness is not just a personal problem, but a philosophical and psychological battleground, a place where the deepest questions of existence are fought and won or lost. You sense that if you could change your relationship to emptiness, you could change everything. Your sense of self, your experience of the world, your capacity for meaning and joy. But the old habits die hard. The fear of emptiness is not just an idea. It is a feeling, a reflex, a pattern etched into your nervous system. It is the anxiety that rises when you are alone, the restlessness that drives you to check your phone, the hunger that cannot be satisfied by food or drink or love. It is the voice that whispers, "You are not enough. You must do more, have more, be more." You see how this hidden force shapes not just individuals, but entire societies. You live in a world that is addicted to fullness, to growth, to consumption, to endless expansion. The economy must grow, the market must expand, the self must improve. There is no room for emptiness, no value in stillness, no space for being rather than doing. The result is a culture of anxiety, of burnout, of spiritual starvation, a world that is full of everything except what matters most. You feel the weight of this realization pressing down on you, the sense that you are caught in a trap of your own making. The emptiness you fear is the very thing you need, the space in which you can breathe, create, become. But to claim it, you must first see the hidden problem for what it is, a story, a habit, a wound that can be healed. You stand at the threshold, the emptiness stretching out before you, vast and silent. You sense that the journey is far from over, that the real consequences of this hidden force have yet to be revealed. The tension builds, the questions multiply. What happens when you refuse to face the emptiness? What price do you pay, as an individual and as a society, for denying the void at the heart of things? The answers wait in the shadows, just beyond the edge of awareness. The emptiness is not done with you yet. It calls you onward, deeper, into the unseen consequences that shape your life in ways you have barely begun to imagine. You move through your day, the world resuming its familiar rhythm, but something is different. The emptiness you glimpsed this morning lingers at the edges of your awareness, a silent observer to every action, every thought. You try to ignore it, to lose yourself in the routines that once felt so solid. Emails, errands, conversations, the endless scroll of information. But the silence persists, a low hum beneath the surface of your life. You begin to notice things you never saw before. The way people fill every pause in conversation with nervous laughter or idle chatter. The way your own hand reaches for your phone the moment a moment of stillness appears, as if the device could shield you from the void. The way the city itself seems designed to keep emptiness at bay. Lights blazing all night, music in every store, advertisements screaming for your attention, promising that happiness is just one more purchase away. But beneath this relentless fullness, you sense a hidden cost. The emptiness you fear does not disappear, simply because you refuse to look at it. Instead, it seeps into your life in subtler, more insidious ways, shaping your reality from the shadows. You begin to see the unseen consequences of your flight from emptiness, consequences that touch every aspect of your existence, from your most private thoughts to the collective dreams of your society. You notice, first, the anxiety. It is everywhere, woven into the fabric of modern life. It hums in the background of your mind, a constant sense of unease, of not enoughness. You see it in the faces of strangers on the subway, in the restless energy of children, in the sleepless nights that haunt so many. The emptiness you refuse to face becomes a kind of static, a background noise that never quite fades, no matter how much you try to drown it out. You remember the words of psychologists who have studied this phenomenon, how the brain, wired for survival, is constantly scanning for threats, for gaps, for absences. The mind abhors a vacuum, and so it fills the emptiness with worry, with rumination, with endless loops of thought. You realize that much of your anxiety is not about any specific problem, but about the emptiness itself, the fear that beneath all the noise and activity, there is nothing solid to hold on to. You see how this anxiety drives behavior. You work harder, buy more, seek out new experiences, not because you truly desire them, but because you are trying to outrun the emptiness. You fill your calendar with appointments, your home with possessions, your mind with plans and projects. But no matter how much you accumulate, the emptiness remains, a hunger that cannot be satisfied. You think of the concept of hedonic adaptation, the way the brain quickly returns to a baseline of satisfaction, no matter how much pleasure or success you achieve. Each new acquisition, each new accomplishment, brings only a fleeting sense of fullness before the emptiness returns. The cycle repeats, endlessly, a treadmill that never stops. You realize that the pursuit of fullness is itself a trap, a game you cannot win. You begin to see the deeper consequences, the ways in which the fear of emptiness shapes not just your own life, but the world around you. You notice the rise of addiction, not just to substances, but to work, to technology, to distraction itself. You see how people use food, sex, entertainment, even relationships as a way to fill the void, to escape the discomfort of being alone with themselves. You see how this endless seeking leads not to satisfaction, but to exhaustion, to burnout, to a sense of spiritual starvation. You recall the insights of neuroscience, the way the brain's reward system is hijacked by novelty, by stimulation, by the promise of something new. Each notification, each like, each message triggers a burst of dopamine, a fleeting sense of pleasure that quickly fades, leaving you craving more. The emptiness becomes a kind of addiction, a cycle of craving and disappointment that is never truly resolved. You see how this dynamic plays out on a larger scale, shaping the culture itself. You live in a society that is obsessed with growth, with progress, with the accumulation of wealth and power. The economy must expand, the market must grow, the self must improve. There is no room for emptiness, no value in stillness, no space for being rather than doing. The result is a culture of anxiety, of overconsumption, of environmental destruction, a world that is full of everything except what matters most. You think of the concept of affluenza, the disease of overabundance, the way material wealth can lead not to happiness but to emptiness, to a sense of meaninglessness. You see how the pursuit of fullness has led to a crisis of purpose, a generation lost in the search for something real, something lasting, something that cannot be bought or achieved. You notice the way relationships are affected. The fear of emptiness makes it difficult to be truly present with others, to listen, to connect on a deep level. Conversations become performances, opportunities to display knowledge or wit, rather than moments of genuine exchange. You see how people use each other as a way to fill the void, to escape their own loneliness, rather than as companions on the journey through emptiness. You sense the loneliness that pervades modern life, the way people are surrounded by others yet feel profoundly alone. The emptiness you refuse to face within yourself becomes a barrier to intimacy, a wall that keeps you separate, even in the midst of a crowd. You realize that true connection is only possible when you are willing to share your emptiness, to be vulnerable, to allow space for silence and uncertainty. You see how the fear of emptiness shapes your sense of self. You build your identity out of roles, achievements, possessions, hoping that if you pile up enough something, the nothing will go away. But the self you construct is fragile, easily threatened by loss, by failure, by change. You become attached to your image, your reputation, your story, afraid that if you let go, you will disappear. You recall the insights of cognitive psychology, the way the mind creates a sense of self through narrative, through the constant telling and retelling of your story. But what happens when the story ends, when the roles fall away, when the emptiness returns? You realize that much of your suffering comes not from the emptiness itself, but from your resistance to it, your refusal to let go of the story. You see how this resistance leads to suffering, to a sense of alienation, of being cut off from the world and from yourself. The emptiness becomes a source of shame, a secret you must hide, a flaw you must correct. You compare yourself to others, measuring your worth by external standards, always coming up short. The emptiness becomes a wound, a source of pain that you carry with you, even as you try to pretend it isn't there. You notice the way this dynamic plays out in society at large. The fear of emptiness drives competition, conflict, the endless struggle for status and recognition. It fuels consumerism, environmental destruction, the exploitation of people and resources. It creates a world in which everyone is striving for more, yet no one is ever satisfied. You think of the words of the Buddha, who taught that suffering arises from attachment, from the refusal to accept the impermanence and emptiness of all things. You realize that the unseen consequences of your flight from emptiness are not just personal, but collective, a source of suffering that touches every aspect of life, from the most intimate to the most global. You feel the urgency of this realization, the sense that something must change. The emptiness you fear is not going away. It is growing, spreading, infecting every corner of your life and your world. The more you run from it, the more powerful it becomes, the more it shapes your reality from the shadows. You sense that the only way out is through, that you must turn and face the emptiness, must learn to see it not as a threat, but as an opportunity. But how? The habits of a lifetime are not easily broken, and the fear of emptiness is deep, primal, woven into the very structure of your mind. You stand at the edge of a precipice, the emptiness yawning before you. You feel the pull of the old ways, the urge to fill, to distract, to escape. But you also feel a new possibility stirring, a sense that there is another way, a way that leads not to suffering, but to freedom. The breakthrough is close, just beyond your grasp. You sense that if you can change your relationship to emptiness, you can change everything. The question is no longer whether you can escape the emptiness, but whether you can learn to embrace it, to find beauty and meaning in the very space you once feared. The tension builds, the urgency grows. The unseen consequences of your flight from emptiness are all around you, shaping your life in ways you can no longer ignore. The time has come to rebel, to break free from the old patterns, to discover a new way of being in the world. The emptiness is waiting. The next step is yours. You stand at the edge of the abyss, the emptiness swirling before you, daring you to leap. For so long you have been taught to turn away, to fill the void with anything and everything, to run from the silence as if it were a predator stalking you in the night. But now, something inside you shifts. The old strategies have failed. The endless pursuit of fullness has left you exhausted, anxious, and strangely hollow. The time for running is over. The time for rebellion has come. But what does it mean to rebel against the tyranny of fullness? How do you break free from the compulsion to fill every moment, every space, every thought? The answer is not what you expect. It is not a matter of doing more, of adding another layer to your already crowded life. It is a matter of subtraction, of letting go, of daring to stand naked before the void and see what remains. You remember the stories of those who have walked this path before you. Radicals, mystics, artists, philosophers who have dared to embrace emptiness and found in it a source of power, of creativity, of liberation. You think of the Zen monks who sweep the temple courtyard, not to make it perfect, but to make space for the mind to settle. You think of the poets who find meaning in the spaces between words, the musicians who let silence shape their melodies, the painters who leave parts of the canvas bare so that the eye can rest. You realize that the first act of rebellion is to stop, to pause, to allow yourself to be still, even for a moment, and to notice what arises in the silence. It is harder than it sounds, the urge to reach for your phone, to check your messages, to fill the space with noise is almost overwhelming. But you resist. You sit with the discomfort, the restlessness, the fear. You let the emptiness wash over you. And you do not run. At first, it feels like dying. The old self, built on busyness and distraction, begins to crumble. The stories you have told yourself about who you are, what you need, what you must do, lose their power. You feel exposed, vulnerable, uncertain. But as the minutes pass, something unexpected happens. The emptiness begins to soften. The silence is no longer a threat, but a refuge. You feel a sense of spaciousness, of possibility, of freedom. You remember the words of Lao Tzu: "We shape clay into a pot, but it is the emptiness inside that holds whatever we want." You begin to see that emptiness is not a lack, but a capacity, a space in which anything can happen, in which you can become anything, or nothing at all. The rebellion is not against emptiness, but against the fear of emptiness, the belief that you must always be full to be alive. You experiment with letting go. You clear a shelf in your home, leaving it bare. You delete an app from your phone, resisting the urge to replace it with something else. You say no to an invitation, choosing instead to spend an evening alone, listening to the quiet. Each act of subtraction feels radical, almost dangerous, as if you are breaking a sacred rule. But with each act, you feel lighter, freer, more yourself. You notice how your mind resists, how it clings to the old patterns, the old comforts. The voice of fear whispers that you are wasting time, that you are missing out, that you are falling behind. But you see these thoughts for what they are: echoes of a culture that worships fullness, that fears the void. You do not believe them. You let them pass, like clouds drifting across an empty sky. You begin to cultivate a new relationship with emptiness. You practice mindfulness, sitting quietly and observing your thoughts without judgment. You notice the spaces between your breaths, the pauses between your words, the gaps between your thoughts. You discover that these spaces are not empty at all, but alive with possibility, with presence, with peace. You remember the story of Siddhartha Gautama, who became the Buddha not by accumulating knowledge or power, but by sitting beneath a tree and doing nothing, by facing the emptiness within himself and refusing to run. You realize that the path to freedom is not a path of addition, but of subtraction, of letting go of everything that is not essential until only the truth remains. You look to history for examples of those who have broken free from the tyranny of fullness. You think of Diogenes, the ancient Greek philosopher who lived in a barrel and owned nothing, who mocked the pretensions of society and found joy in simplicity. You think of Henry David Thoreau, who retreated to the woods to live deliberately, to strip life down to its bare essentials and see what was left. You think of Simone Weil, who wrote that attention is the rarest and purest form of generosity, and who found meaning not in doing, but in being, in attending to the world with an open, empty mind. You realize that rebellion is not always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it is as simple as saying no, as quiet as sitting still, as subtle as letting go of a thought. It is the courage to face the emptiness, to trust that you will not be destroyed by it, but transformed. You begin to see the world differently, The spaces between things become as important as the things themselves. You notice the beauty of an empty room, the elegance of a simple meal, the clarity that comes from a mind uncluttered by worry or desire. You find yourself drawn to the margins, to the pauses, to the silences that give shape to experience. You discover that emptiness is not a void, but a field of potential. It is the space in which creativity arises, in which new ideas are born, in which transformation becomes possible. You see how the greatest works of art, the most profound insights, the deepest connections, all emerge from the willingness to be empty, to wait, to listen. You feel a new sense of power, a quiet confidence that comes from knowing you are no longer a slave to the need for fullness. You are no longer driven by fear, by the compulsion to fill every gap, to escape every silence. You are free to choose, to create, to be. You realize that the rebellion is not just personal, but collective. You see how the world is hungry for emptiness, for space, for silence. You notice the rise of movements that celebrate minimalism, mindfulness, slow living. You see people turning away from the noise and clutter of modern life, seeking simplicity, authenticity, presence. You sense that a revolution is underway, a quiet, subtle, radical shift in consciousness. The old paradigm of fullness is crumbling, and in its place, a new way of being is emerging, one that honors emptiness as a source of strength, of beauty, of possibility. You feel yourself becoming part of this rebellion, this movement toward a new relationship with emptiness. You share your insights with others, not as dogma, but as an invitation. You listen more, speak less. You create space in your relationships, allowing others to be themselves, to be empty, to be free. You notice the changes in yourself. You are less anxious, less driven, less attached to outcomes. You find joy in simple things, in quiet moments, in the beauty of the ordinary. You are more present, more alive, more at peace. You realize that the rebellion is ongoing, that the old habits will return, that the fear of emptiness will never disappear entirely. But you are no longer afraid. You know that emptiness is not your enemy, but your ally, your teacher, your friend. You stand at the threshold of a new way of being, the emptiness stretching out before you, vast and inviting. You sense that the journey is not over, that the ultimate truth is still waiting to be revealed. But you are no longer running. You are ready to face whatever comes, to embrace the emptiness, to discover the beauty and power that lie within. The rebellion has begun. The world will never be the same, and neither will you. You stand in the center of the emptiness now, no longer a stranger, no longer trembling at the edge. The rebellion has stripped away the old illusions, the frantic need to fill every space, the desperate grasping for meaning in things that could never satisfy. You are here, in the heart of the void, and for the first time, you are not afraid. A hush falls over your mind, deeper than silence, more profound than any peace you have ever known. The world around you seems to pause, as if holding its breath, waiting for you to see what has always been hidden in plain sight. The emptiness is not a lack, not a wound, not a threat. It is the source. It is the ground from which everything arises and to which everything returns. You realize, with a clarity that is almost blinding, that emptiness is not the opposite of fullness. It is the condition for fullness. It is the space in which life unfolds, the silence that gives meaning to every sound, the pause that makes music possible, the blank page that invites creation. Without emptiness, there could be no form, no movement, no change. Without emptiness, there could be no you. You remember the paradoxes that once haunted you. How can nothingness feel so heavy? How can the absence of something be more overwhelming than its presence? Now, standing in the center of the void, you see the answer. Emptiness is not nothing. It is potential. It is the infinite possibility that precedes every act, every thought, every breath. You think of the universe itself, born from a singularity, an explosion of emptiness into form. You think of the spaces between the stars, the gaps between atoms, the silence between heartbeats. You see that everything you have ever loved, everything you have ever feared, arises from this same emptiness, dances for a moment in the light, and then dissolves back into the void. You feel a wave of gratitude, fierce and unexpected, for the emptiness that has shaped your life. You see how every loss, every ending, every moment of loneliness was an invitation to return to the source, to rediscover the beauty and power of the void. You see how the emptiness has always been your companion, your teacher, your guide. You remember the words of the mystics, the poets, the sages who have glimpsed this truth before you. Rumi, who wrote, "Don't grieve, anything you lose comes round in another form." The Tao Te Ching, which teaches that the usefulness of a pot comes from its emptiness. The Zen masters who speak of beginner's mind, the openness that allows for wonder, for learning, for transformation. You realize that the ultimate truth is not something you can possess, not something you can hold on to or define. It is something you must surrender to, something you must become. The emptiness is not outside you, it is you. It is the space in which your thoughts arise, the silence in which your heart beats, the openness in which your life unfolds. You see with a shock of recognition that you have been searching for yourself in all the wrong places, in achievements, in possessions, in relationships, in stories about who you are and who you should be. But the self you have been seeking is not a thing, not a fixed identity, not a collection of memories or desires. It is the emptiness itself, the open space in which all experience happens. You feel a sense of liberation, of release, as if a great weight has been lifted from your shoulders. You no longer need to prove yourself, to justify your existence, to fill every moment with meaning or purpose. You are free to be, to rest in the emptiness, to allow life to unfold as it will. You realize that this is the ultimate act of courage, not to fill the emptiness, but to trust it, to surrender to it, to let it shape you and guide you. You see that the emptiness is not a void to be feared, but a womb, a cradle, a source of endless creativity and renewal. You remember the times in your life when you felt most alive, not when you were full, but when you were empty, open, receptive. The moment before a great decision, when anything was possible. The pause between breaths, when the world seemed to hold its breath with you. The silence after a loss, when the heart is broken open and the light pours in. You see that emptiness is not the end, but the beginning. It is the space in which you can let go of the past, release your attachment to the future, and rest in the present moment. It is the ground of being, the source of all wisdom, all compassion, all joy. You feel a deep sense of connection, not just to yourself, but to everything and everyone. You see that the emptiness in you is the same as the emptiness in others, the same as the emptiness in the world. You are not separate, not alone, not isolated. You are part of a vast interconnected web of being, woven together by the invisible threads of emptiness. You realize that the beauty of emptiness is not in what it lacks, but in what it makes possible. It is the space in which love can grow, in which creativity can flourish, in which transformation can occur. It is the silence that allows you to hear the music of life, the openness that allows you to receive the gifts of the world. You see, finally, that the journey you have taken, the journey through fear, through loss, through rebellion, was always leading you here to this moment of recognition, of acceptance, of surrender. The emptiness is not something to be overcome, but something to be embraced, celebrated, cherished. You stand in the center of your life, the emptiness all around you, and you feel a sense of peace, of wholeness, of belonging. You are no longer running, no longer searching, no longer afraid. You are home. The world around you seems to shimmer, to come alive with possibility. The spaces between things are filled with light, with energy, with meaning. You see the beauty in the ordinary, the sacred in the mundane, the infinite in the finite. You realize that the ultimate truth is not a destination, but a way of being, a willingness to rest in the emptiness, to trust the unfolding of life, to let go of the need for certainty or control. It is a dance, a play, a song that is always beginning, always ending, always returning to the silence from which it arose. You feel a sense of awe, of wonder at the mystery of it all. The emptiness is not a problem to be solved, but a mystery to be lived, a question to be explored, a source of endless fascination and delight. You know now that you will never be the same. The emptiness has changed you, has opened you, has revealed to you the truth of who you are and what you are capable of. You are no longer afraid of the void. You are the void, the space in which all things are possible. You turn to face the world, your heart open, your mind clear, your spirit free. You are ready to live, to love, to create, to become. The emptiness is your ally, your companion, your guide. And as you step forward into the unknown, you carry with you the ultimate truth, that the beauty of emptiness is not in what it takes away, but in what it gives the freedom to be, the courage to change, the wisdom to let go, and the grace to begin again. The journey is not over. It never will be. The emptiness is always waiting, always inviting you to return, to rest, to remember who you are. And so you walk on, haunted and inspired, forever changed by the beauty of emptiness.